Jaidah Group is a privately held company in Qatar. We're one of the oldest private businesses since the late 1800s. The activities span in 5 different industries, from automotive to heavy equipment to electrical, furniture and energy, or oil and gas.
And I think many people are interested in the fact that Qatar has decided to host this conference because, you know, it's slightly unlikely. In a sense, you're coming to not necessarily the heart of the problem, but you're coming to one of the heartlands of the oil and gas industry, which is contributing vast amounts to climate change. So give us an idea from your perspective about what you think was the sort of the logic in the Qatari government's thoughts when they applied to host the conference.
Well, I really commend my government on doing such a great, or taking such a great initiative in bringing COP18 to the region. You know, I mean, I like to compare our part of the world to Europe during the Industrial Revolution. We are at that point in time in our part of the world. So if you look at Europe during the Industrial Revolution, that was where probably, you know, everything was booming, but at the same time there was a lot of wastage, a lot of, and at the time no one really cared in the early 1900s. We, as first of all a country, but also as a region, have been, you know, in this time and age, we've been just trying to be much more aware and much more efficient in our way of doing things. So I think that it makes a lot of sense. It's true that most of our economies are very reliant on the oil and gas industry. The government has this policy of trying to diversify the economy and not just rely on oil and gas. And even then, they've been very adamant in reducing wastage, reducing the pollution. We have laws and regulations coming out, even in the construction industry, and you know, we're trying to actually put standards to make sure that our buildings do not waste energy, on our everyday life, to actually save as much energy as we can.
And it also seems very relevant to Qatar, because only having been here a week, but it seems, particularly when the sun comes out, it's very hot, it's quite dusty, and I guess you lack things like rivers and those supplies of water. So actually it's also quite relevant for Qatar, because if the temperature continues to rise, this could be a harder place to live.
Definitely. I mean, weather here, especially in the summer, is not the most pleasant one. It can be very hot, very humid, very dusty, as you said. And to be honest, I think at the same time we manage to save, or not to save, but to actually balance that. You know, I mean, there's a very strong initiative on solar energy, for example, which is a great thing in a place where you have a lot of sun. So you do, there are a lot of cons, but there are a lot of pros, and you know, we could look at the glass half empty, but what we're trying to do is look at the half full part and build on that.
Yeah. And your company is quite interesting, I guess, because it covers a number of different sectors. You mentioned oil and gas, but you also cover a number of different areas. How hard are you finding it to really, you know, cut your carbon footprint and make the company more efficient? Because across such a diverse range of sectors, it must prove quite an interesting, but also I guess quite a challenging project.
It's true. I'm very excited, actually, thank you for asking that question, because I'm very excited. We are actually in the process of changing very much the way we're working at Jada. You see, when you are in an old building or in an existing building, it's very difficult, first of all, to change things, you know, when it's related to the building, and it's also very difficult to change the way people do things. We are actually in the process of changing. We're moving our headquarters. We have built our new building, which will be moving within the next 3 months. And this building has been built with the high standards of for construction. We made sure to use smart technology. We have installed a building management system to make sure that there's no wastage. This is where technology comes in, and we're very lucky because we're a country in construction, so we can afford putting these new technologies that can help us monitor and average down the energy consumption. So we have been very active in putting all the right technologies, the right building management systems, to have the electricity consumption down, to have the water wastage down. So there is a lot of technology put into this new building to really bring it down. On top of that, on a day-to-day activity, we are actually upgrading all our ERP systems to move to much more paperless way of doing work. So not that everything needs to be printed or needs to actually be on paper, basically. So everything will be through our intranet.
And I guess a lot of these changes, particularly we're seeing it in the UK and the USA, are driven by consumers. They're asking companies, they're telling companies, we're not going to buy from you unless you have certain standards. To what extent are you finding that in Qatar, but also in the countries around the world where you are, I guess, operating and selling and buying goods from?
Well, to be very honest, it's very difficult to be applicable here. Basically, you're in a part of the world where oil and gas is very cheap. There are no taxes on energy consumption. So really, you cannot say, well, if you bring your consumption down, we will bring down your taxes or whatsoever. So it is really a government-led initiative. The government is really trying to actually educate. There's a step where you need to educate people before requesting from them. You can't just change from one day to another and say, well, you know what, from now on, your energy consumption should be X. It just can't work. So the government is really leading that change. They're really they're really educating people. They created a Green Council building to actually make sure that all the buildings that are being built are to standards and eco-friendly. So you have a lot of initiatives. Eventually, this will come. Something similar to what's happening in the US and Europe. Right now, we're much more into an education process, I believe.
And how do you see Jada developing over the next couple of decades? I know Qatar has this sort of much talked about 2030 policy, which the Emir has sort of put forward. How do you see yourselves developing up to 2030? Do you sense that there will be more energy efficiency measures, and will you be moving into fields like solar technology?
Yes, definitely. I think that Vision 2030 has modified the way of thought for a lot of people here and a lot of corporations. Everyone is trying to really incorporate it within their way of thought and their strategies. So basically, I believe that yes, you'll see not only Jada but a lot of companies moving into that direction. For us, we are definitely looking at getting into recyclable energy. Solar is definitely one of them, but we're not only exclusively looking at solar. We're looking at all the different recyclable energies, and we are definitely looking for partners from around the world to actually help us develop that in this part of the world.